You have to go all the way back to 1914, where the turnout rate was 51%. We can have a turnout rate that virtually no one has ever experienced, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, because like historically, like no one really turns out for early voting, but if people want to get it done so quickly, it could be really good. Like there could be a major, we could get most of the country to vote then, so we don't have to worry about it. The turnout was 51% back then, which is pretty crazy. We got 48%. We'll take a look. We'll obviously be keeping an eye on if these patterns persist and if how the early voting is going across the country. But publicly available data on early voting suggests that Republican voters, more likely Republican voters than likely Democrats, so far have cast their ballots. So more Republicans probably have cast their ballots, but it's too early to draw any firm conclusions. We just don't really know yet. So yeah, early voting thing is it works differently in each state, but generally it takes two forms: in person and by mail. Mail-in votes tend to skew Republican, in part because mail-in voting is popular with older voters. Some states make it easy for older people to vote mail, but harder for younger people to do so. Anyone over 60 in Michigan, that's pretty blatant. Anyone in Michigan over 60 can get an absentee ballot. In-person votes, again, tend to favor early Democrats. Tend to favor Democrats because younger people, shall we say, are a little bit more mobile. Yeah, I'm just going to go out and say, like, they're a little bit more mobile. So early voting figures are collected from state and local election authorities who keep a record of who has voted. The data can be analyzed using computer models or publicly available information like age, race, or party registration to make informed guesses about how someone voted. But analysis of early voting figures is missing the crucial evidence because the data available does not include how a person actually voted. Like, we just don't know. There's no complete and clear way of saying how they voted. Like, we can't tell for sure until November 6th when the votes are actually counted. And by the way, this is just my random election theory. Like, they should really have the early votes counted, and as soon as like the polls close for everyone else, like boom, you release them like real quick, or maybe even the midnight of election day. You say, okay, we're gonna count. We already counted the early votes across the states, and we'll have a point where we know where every single candidate's leading, count the early voting, and then the other votes start to come in. People voted same day, and that'll come in. Like, that's pretty much how it's supposed to work. Like, that's how it should work. Like, I don't know, call me crazy, but like that's how it should work in my opinion. Like, you just get the votes and get it quickly, get it done. But that's just my situation. And another question a lot of people want to know is, as of now, which party is in the lead? And we don't really know that because who you voted for, again, as I said, is now public information. But also because the snapshot of early voting results on any specific day does not necessarily represent what the final result will be, because voting, again, stretches out from now until election day. I mean, most of it, I think, started last week in many states, which is interesting. The ebb and flow of the election cycle is it's not true every single state, but it's true in the national aggregate. Republicans tend to run up the score early with the absentee vote. Democrats come back strong with a massive surge of in-person early voting. Then on election day, the vote tends to be closer with a slight Republican lead. Republicans have to play catch-up on election day because Democrats come back with that in-person voting. They're big on the in-person voting. But yeah, the absentee ballots seem to be Republican focused. Yeah, and Republican seeming voters have cast more ballots than Democratic seeming voters. That's, again, because the mail-in ballots are sent to voters weeks before Election Day, and that gives them time to cast a vote and mail it in. That means when early voting first opens, mail-in ballots are usually the first votes to be counted. Age is also a factor. Young people tend to vote later than older people, so young people will enter the electorate as we get into next week. Yeah, and I really don't get why more people don't vote early. It seems like so much more convenient, because if we get that out of the way in some shape or form, like, you don't have to, like, you can just get it done. Like, especially with the mail-in ballots, because especially with mail-in ballots, because like you can just take your time, you get it sent, you mail it in, you make your decision, and you don't have to like allot like 3 extra hours in Tuesday morning to go to work. Like it just seems so much more smart and like so much more convenient. But I don't know how. I don't really know much about how the process is to get those ballots. But so I may not be talking about something that I may be talking about something I don't really understand. But it's going to be very tough. Early voting has become more popular in recent years, with more than 22 million people casting early votes during the 2016 election, and enthusiasm in the 2018 midterms is high. Voter turnout on Monday and the first day of early voting in Texas was up 325% in Dallas County and 213% in Harris County, home to Houston, compared with the first day in 2014, according to figures provided by the Texas Democrats. So yeah, it looks like early voting is up, and that could again mean good things or bad things for both. All right, we now turn to Barack Obama. At a rally last night in Las Vegas, the former president, not the former Republican, Barack Obama, a little bit of Freudian stuff there, urged the crowd to overcome their cynicism and vote this November. He told the audience that the threat of democracy does not come from one person in the White House or Republicans in Congress or big money lobbyists. The biggest threat to our democracy is indifference, he says. So, yeah, here he is, the man, the myth, the Barack Obama. And after that, we're going to tell you what's wrong with his statements. Okay, we seem like it is seem like it's muted here, which is a little strange, a little annoying, just to say the least. But all right, okay. There was something on my end. I do apologize. Here we go.
The threat to our democracy does not come from one person in the White House or Republicans in Congress or big money lobbyists. The biggest threat to our democracy is indifference. The biggest threat to our democracy is cynicism that says we're just going to stay home because my voice doesn't matter. But listen, I won states because 10 people extra in every precinct voted. I won that state because of that. The last election, it was probably the same number of people that could fit into a football stadium swayed the entire election. Don't tell me your vote doesn't matter. If you don't like what's going on right now, and you shouldn't, don't complain. Don't get anxious. Don't throw up your hands. Don't boo. Vote. And when you vote, not just for these candidates, but up and down the line for mayors and sheriffs and district attorneys, you have the power to make sure our voting rights are protected.
And yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. I don't mean to sound like I do remember him saying all this stuff in 2016, and none of it worked. Like, normally it's like, yeah, I mean, that could work with some people, but it's not going to entirely work. I mean, yeah, Obama, he continued to say again, but the key thing, though, is he says the threat to our democracy does not come from one person in the White House or Republicans in Congress or big money lobbyists. The biggest threat to our democracy and difference, don't tell me your vote doesn't matter. This is simply not true. Like, it's true that indifference is a bigger threat. It's not true, that indifference is a bigger threat to our democracy than Trump or Republicans or big money lobbyists or anything like that. Because it's them who can, once they get into power, I mean, they can change the voting rights. Like they can change the way people vote. Like, look at the majority in Congress. Look how much of the population they represent. Look who is able to vote. Look who is not able to vote. Look who's being suppressed at the polls. Look who's being gerrymandered. And that's all because of Republicans in Congress and big money lobbyists. And look how people's lives have been changed. Like, it's very, very tough. I mean, again, to make that case, but I mean, I do kind of get like the purpose of what he's saying is it's important. Like it's good to get people out to vote, but it's going to be very tough. But the question is, when it comes to voting and turnout, it's whether there's incontrovertible empirical evidence that the lobbyists matter more than the indifference. But the voting public is justified in feeling that way, and you would have to be a straight up loon to think they aren't. Lobbying spent $3.37 billion in 2017. A former coal lobbyist runs the EPA, which is scaling back rules to help the chemical industry after heavy lobbying, according to the New York Times. Lobbyists also help score a rollback in air pollution standards. The Saudi Arabian government just brutally murdered a Washington Post journalist. They appear to have green-lit it. This appear. And again, his body was dismembered with the bone saw, and they spent $27 million lobbying last year, and has half of Washington D.C. on his payroll, even before Trump. Like the evilness in lobbying, like it goes from way back. Like that's the way it works, and especially with with really almost every single solitary industry you can think of. It's very important. Also, like literally, someone just tried to kill George Soros because Republicans, again, like Trump keeps saying he's evil. Like someone literally just tried to kill George Soros. They put like a pipe bomb in his house or near his house, but they had to send like a bomb squad to go defuse it. It was crazy. Like he lives probably like 30 minutes away from where I live. Like go ask him for some money. I don't know. Get the word out. That's actually a very interesting idea. Now that I'm thinking about it, go ask George Soros for some money. He lives so close. Spread my democratic message. Actually, Soros funded. Republicans in Congress, meanwhile, would stand by and give no comment if Trump took a huge fat dump on the Lincoln Memorial, and said Abe had very bad views on slavery as long as he kept delivering wins to industry and his donors and the people who support him. Like, that's pretty much his control, and we all know that, and they're not going to do anything about it. All right, so, yeah, like, lobbying, it's very important. It needs to stop, and it's the way it works. Just look at the candidate Obama was campaigning for last night, Jackie Rosen, Wacky Jackie, as they call her, as Trump calls her in Nevada. She's better than the Republican, who's pretty much awful. But as all Republicans are, there's no matter Republicans. I keep telling you over and over and over again. And, I mean, obviously you hope she wins. You hope she can get in there. She's challenging Dean Heller in the Senate. And obviously want to do as best as we can in the Senate. But here's the thing. If you look at her on healthcare, Jackie knows our healthcare system has real problems. That's why we need to work together to fix. She knows that working to develop bipartisan solutions. Again, you're not going to work with any Republicans to get bipartisan solutions to healthcare. Like, that's ridiculous. I do not know what you're talking about, Jackie. Like, I don't get it. She signed on to and helped pass bipartisan legislation in the House to repeal medical device tax. She's also introduced forward-thinking legislation to cap rising costs of life-saving prescription drugs and limit monthly out-of-pocket costs for individual families. Like, no one's inspired by any of that. Bipartisan solutions are brokered by a party that wants to stop at your healthcare literally entirely and wants to come in and lie about it. Like, they say, yeah, like, this is pretty much the evil of the Republican Party right now about healthcare. What they're going to do is they're going to say, yeah, I'm sorry, I want to protect your healthcare. I want to support your pre-existing conditions. As they're literally suing to take away your pre-existing conditions. Like Josh Hawley, Rick Scott, Dean Heller. Like, they have all voted to repeal Obamacare or are suing to get rid of Obamacare, which protects pre-existing conditions. So they're all literal liars. They're lying to your face as they're going behind your back to take away your healthcare. Like, that's
racist because
that's a little preview of our next story. But sorry for that. But that is literally the lowest of the low right there. Like, I just don't get, and the fact that she doesn't realize that, Obama doesn't realize that they're a bigger problem. Like, it's a little bit disturbing. Like, I don't think he understands. Like, I mean, there's definitely a way to frame it. Like, you vote to get those people out. Like, you cast those people as an enemy. The people who are ruining people's lives. And it's true, because they are. Like, you pretty much destroy them with facts. And what you do is you say, those people, those are the common enemy. The Republicans are the common enemy.